now, Dr. Pittman will be joined by another special guest for our Fireside chat. Mr. Bob Lord is IBM Senior Vice President for Worldwide Ecosystems. He is focused on transforming how IBM engages with clients and ensuring the success of IBM's ecosystems of partners and developers with an open hybrid cloud platform and AI software. At the center of this work is a commitment to open innovation. Mr. Lord oversees IBM's leadership and participation in open source communities and its contributions and donations of open source code, and he fosters collaborations across industry, government, academia, and NGOs. Prior to IBM, Mr. Lord served as president of AOL, leading the company through its evolution to a leading global advertising platform. He also served as CEO of Razorfish, a pioneering digital transformation consultancy, helping companies like Cisco, Condé Nast, Ford, Mercedes-Benz, and Pfizer redefine their brands for the digital age. And with that, I turn it over to Dr. Pittman and Mr. Lord.
Introduction, and hello, Bob. It's good to see you again, sir.
Thanks, David. Great to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've managed to chat and get to know each other just a little bit, and really in preparing for this summit. And I just want to thank you, sir, right up front, because what you're doing in IBM is incredible. And just, I don't have to tell folks about IBM that much, but I'm going to brag on IBM a little bit. You guys have been around longer than ERDC. Since 1911. You're 10 times bigger than the Corps of Engineers itself. And it's incredible what you do in innovation. You got your own research labs, you win awards, you get Nobel Prizes and all this kind of thing. And of course, you've heard Corps of Engineers history. We've been around since 1775, so two legendary organizations, but we got a lot to learn from IBM. And so that's the reason we brought you on today. So we sincerely appreciate you being here, Bob.
Yeah, and David, thank you for having me. I do want to thank all of the work that you do for our country and for society. And I think as your prior speech said, let's just go try. I think that attitude has really made us into the #1 country in the world. So thank you for all your contributions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we couldn't do it with folks like IBM. Just the pace setters and all really innovation, really the groundbreaking for all of our IT that we do today, I believe. So the way we want to do this is kind of a fireside chat type format. So just a few questions, we can just kind of talk through them there, Bob. And we're really interested in how IBM does it. And you, with your great background, you're actually leading the charge there in IBM. So I'll just ask you a few questions and we can chat about it. And the first question is this. So can you share with us how you define something called open innovation in IBM, and why is it so important to IBM?
Yeah, so I think the concept of open innovation really starts with this belief that in business, the path to progress or innovation starts with data. And for the last 4 decades, the world has been creating more data than ever before, from electronic health records to global supply chain transactions to your mobile phone, right? This is the raw material of providing business insight that I believe into modern problem solving to understand and address, I think, the most complex and challenging problems that we have facing not only business, but society. But the problem with it is it's data. You really have to figure out how to provide open insight into that data. And if closed systems exist, i.e. data silos, insufficient security, innovation doesn't necessarily happen very well. When I think about open innovation, innovation itself is the application of science and technology in solving problems, but open innovation is actually sharing the ideas, the research, and the information in pursuit of those solutions. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing, but it's why we acquired Red Hat, because Red Hat really forms a foundational element to power the ecosystem and partners in an open hybrid cloud world, which is incredibly important for businesses to transform themselves. And it starts with actually sharing appropriate information, obviously, and appropriate data, but allows for sharing. The closed systems actually shut us off. And I would even say are the antithesis of innovation.
Well, that's fantastic, Bob. I'm thinking you're coming to our boardrooms because we're talking about the exact same thing right now in the Corps of Engineers and in ERDC. It is all about data, as you say. So very interesting. I want to pull on that thread a little bit. So how does IBM specifically embody this open innovation concept?
Well, look, one of the reasons why I came to IBM, right? I mean, I think IBM in general has a strong culture of collaboration and openness. I think, if I go back and remember, I think back in the 50s was our mainframe success. Only 20 years ago, we really fully embraced the Linux operating system. And, in both of those situations, we created ecosystems around both of those technologies. I believe that we're doing the same thing here today, driving open standards in a fragmented and siloed cloud market. I mean, when we go talk to our clients, they're hosted on 5 to 6 different cloud providers, right? And they have an on-prem solution. That's not a great way of operating a business when you actually can't connect those pieces together. Right. So with our hybrid cloud solution, we're breaking down those barriers. We're opening up innovation. When we're allowing our customers to collaborate deep inside the organization to really understand their customers or consumers better and allow them to service them better than ever before. But it's fundamentally really getting at the core of how you operate as a culture and how you operate as an environment. It's imperative that we do this, that companies work across computing environments, spanning the complex web of on-prem and infrastructure. And it's really what Arvind Krishna, our CEO, is out talking about, is about this revolutionary platform around hybrid cloud to help simplify this complexity for our clients and fuel innovation.
Excellent. Yeah. Again, you must be sitting in our boardrooms because we're trying to sort this out, and I'm glad companies like IBM are tackling this because we depend on you, frankly, to solve a lot of these problems for us going forward. So
and David, as you and I talked, there are some, we have now strong relationships with lots of software vendors that people may have thought that we compete against in certain areas, whether it's Salesforce, Adobe on the global services side, Deloitte, Infosys. We're embracing companies that think like us, like Amazon Web Services and Microsoft. So it's a complex world that has to be stitched together, to your point.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then on the government side, too, again, we have all these cloud services out there. It'd be good if we could pull those together just like you're saying. So if there's industry solutions and the government side, we got our part to do as well. But I was going to ask you, so can you share some of those examples you just talked about, both with your clients and your partners, on how this concept is taking hold?
Yeah, so most interestingly, probably the one that I'm most close to is on the client side is our Delta Airlines example, where Delta is really transforming its computing environment to run in a open hybrid cloud environment on Red Hat OpenShift. And what it's allowing Delta to do is look at all their applications and figure out a modernization strategy so that they can actually service their clients better and their travelers better online and while they're in flight. It's also the new technology, specifically around Kubernetes and containers, is really driving great engineering productivity at the same time that it's enhancing customer experience in the future and setting them up for the scale that they'll get as they grow. Interestingly enough, under the pandemic, sort of as travel went down a little bit, we were able to accelerate some of those initiatives so that we're actually ready better, I would say, as we're all coming out of the pandemic. Right. On the partner front, probably the best example I can give you is around our financial services cloud, which we launched. And this is a highly regulated, compliant-based public cloud that the Bank of America, BNP Paribas, and other banks have committed to, that not only comes with technology, but more importantly comes with over 100 global systems integrators, independent software vendors, SaaS providers, that actually comply to that same infrastructure. And together then, with this financial services cloud, You're not getting a technology, but you're actually getting the ecosystem around it. So as a bank, you don't have to go through compliant with every software vendor. So we create that ecosystem at the same time, which I think is an interesting sort of dynamic, not just creating the software, but also what's the ecosystem that actually survives around it in an open world like this. And then obviously on the quantum side, the ecosystem is being built in from the beginning. I mean, the first thing that the quantum team has done is really pull together a quantum network, which is a community of top customers in like diverse industries from finance to travel. And it's aimed at having them use quantum and classical computing in concert to figure out how we actually solve some of the more challenging problems that we have around the world.
Right. Well, I love that concept because I think that's exactly how we get after it. You got economies of scale there. You got security issues. You got trust issues. They have to be open about how they do things. So, a great approach, hard to pull off, but I'm glad you're leading the way in doing it. So, let's talk about something that we talked about earlier. It's called Call for Code. Could you tell us a little bit about that program and how it's helped shape how you view open innovation?
Yeah, so this is actually really interesting. This was probably one of the first projects that I was asked to actually lead with the company. I mean, what it is actually a program that was co-founded by the UN Human Rights Office and David Clark Cause and a couple other great partners. But it was basically to ask the 24 million developers and data scientists in the world to use IBM's technology to go and solve some major societal problems that we have. And the first one we went after, we actually looked at mitigation of natural disasters. It's now migrated to climate change, to COVID-19 information, systematic racism, and the list goes on and on. But the program basically was built with the belief that there are activist developers out there, and they want to engage, and they want to use their skill set, not just by filling sandbags, but by using their skills in coding and using tools like, Watson AI and hybrid cloud and IBM blockchain technologies and apply towards a problem. Because at the end of the day, developers and data scientists, they want to solve a problem. That's what they're good at. Right. And the response has been overwhelming. I mean, beyond anything that I could have imagined. Today, I think we've touched over 500,000 developers and data scientists in 180 countries. Quite honestly, David, yesterday I learned that there was a Call for Code event that happened in concert with Samsung that was launched to go out and look at the unsung heroes out there. So the competition, it's more than a competition. It's much more about how do we open up our ecosystem to solve some real challenges. And then we're taking those solutions and putting them into the Linux Foundation so that they can be shared with other developers and those solutions can be matured. So it's a good example of when you can actually have people focus on a common problem that they're trying to solve, not just looking at it myopically in their local district, but using technology to scale it at a global scale. And I'm actually very proud of the position I sit in here at IBM to use the IBM global platform to be able to launch something like this.
That's amazing. As public servants, that's what we're all about, is serving society. That's our duty, and that turns us on, frankly, helping to solve those key challenges like that. So it's great to see companies like IBM, one of the greatest companies in the world, have that same call as well. It's not just about the dollars and cents, I know business, but it's about that calling as well.
100%.
Yes, sir. So I got one last question on this area. So at a very high level then, what is your view on the path that organizations like the Corps of Engineers, for instance, should take to truly embrace this idea of open innovation?
Yeah, so I think anyone goes through this cultural wave of I don't want to share my stuff with people, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's something that you have to sort of digest a bit. But I think there's really 4 things that we should all think about as we go into this world and embracing this concept of open innovation. Number 1 is you have to drive it through a growth mindset, meaning that make the pie bigger, make the ecosystem bigger, and there'll be a bigger slice for you. Versus arguing over the smaller slice. That comes by being naturally curious and creative with your partners and your teams. Modeling behavior, I will call it as being a problem solver, not a problem explainer. A problem solver, not a problem explainer. And I say that twice because what I often find is as you go down these journeys, lots of people come to me explaining the problem, but they're not actually helping me solve the problem in a growth mindset. The second thing is to really look outside your own walls, which I complimented you, David, about sort of bringing me in and talking to me about what we're doing, right? And I just learned a lot about what you're doing in your opening. But I think you have to look outside your walls to be successful, and even think beyond the competition, just parallel industries. The third is I fundamentally believe that we've got to embrace science, and we've got to bring the scientific methodology into our decision making. That's why I started out with data. The more data we have, we can form hypotheses. We can iterate on those hypotheses and get to better conclusions. And then where arguments are much more decision-based making. It's not all absolute, but it should at least form the good bullseye. And then the last is operate with agility, which I know you guys have embraced at scale. But I will tell you, as I go around and talk to clients and partners, it's not ubiquitous. People don't embrace agile development methodologies, getting things out, test and try. It's not instinctful yet for everyone. And we've got to operate at enhanced speed here to be competitive and I think ultimately have an impact on society.
Bob, it's almost like you're singing our song here. I mean, you know, we're going to embrace those concepts. I'm going to preach the gospel now of open innovation from Bob Lord himself. I mean, this is incredible, you know, and I realize now the commonalities that our two great organizations have, the Army Corps of Engineers and IBM, and I think together in that kind of partnership, how could we lose, right? I mean, these challenges are so great going forward. So, man, sir, it's such a privilege to have you here today. I mean, it's an honor to meet you. We've only met a few times and talked, but I do hope you come see us sometime, by the way. I'd love to host it here at ERDC, or the Corps of Engineers, you know, is a big organization. And love your remarks. I'm a disciple now of open innovation here, and so we'll help spread that word. And thank you so much, sir, for being a guest on our Innovation Summit, the second one in our history, and sharing your wisdom with all of us.
Great. Thanks for having me, David. And hi to everyone. And I absolutely will take you up on that visit.
All right, man. Look forward to seeing you here. Take care, Bob.
Bye-bye.